So,
Hi. Oh, everybody's coming in. I'm seeing Chiamaka. Oh, all our interns are turning up. This is nice. Hello, everyone. Hi, CJ.
Hi, CJ.
Hi, Chiamaka. Hi, everyone. Oh my God, this is a full room. Please, can we turn on our videos? Hi, Olu. Hi, Akere. Hi, Ayolua. Oh my God. And we have Emeka and Obafemi. Thank you all for coming in. Hello, everyone. Okay. Chisom, can you still hear? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. All right, let's kick off. So thank you all for coming in. Thank you so much, Chisom, once again. Let me give a little intro for Chisom because we're all happy that she's here. So Chisom is a seasoned. She's a seasoned professional with a passion for career development and interview preparedness, with a strong background in software engineering and data science as well. Chisom has an amassed wealth of knowledge and experience that she's eager to share with us today, and her dedication to helping individuals and building systems and building teams is something that we cannot look past. So thank you so much, Chisom, for coming in today. And I'm looking forward to catching a lot of golden nuggets from you. So how it's going to go is we're gonna have, your event, and everyone, please drop your questions in the chat section. As at the end of the session, Chisom is going to take all the questions one by one. So Chisom, over to you. You're muted. Okay.
Okay.
Wendy. Okay, yeah.
Okay, we good now. We good.
Yes.
Thank you, Anita. Hi, everybody. I'm super excited to be here. I love speaking, but when it comes to speaking with women in tech, it's a different kind of excitement because it's something I'm really proud of. I love being the interns. You guys are doing amazing. Yeah, before I graduated from school. And prior to that time, I did my internship at the Bank of America. I'm also an author. I wrote a very amazing book that I'll be sharing with you all today, of course. A Techie's Guide into Big Tech Companies. So what motivated me to write this book was that I wanted more people to get into international companies. I wanted more Nigerians to see that these things are possible. I didn't just want it to be me. I also wanted to leave the door open for people and just give people the granular information needed to get into these type of companies. And aside being an author, I'm also a content creator. I'm a YouTuber. I have a YouTube channel. I love speaking to people, 30-year-old, navigating life and all that stuff. So yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at TechQueen and Instagram at Chisom Nwokwu. So today we're going to be talking about something that's very important, especially if you're not only in the tech space, or if you're someone that is looking to get into the job market, if you're someone that is looking to shine in the job market. And the only way that you can get employed is doing interviews. This is the only way that a company can hire you. So aside from applying, aside from letting a recruiter reach out to you, aside from getting referrals, if you do not do well in your interviews, you are not moving a step forward into getting a job. So this topic is very important, and I'll love each and every one of us to just pay attention and just try to pick as much things as you can from this talk. So today's agenda, we're going to be looking at different interview styles. Interviews come in several ways. We're also going to be looking at what to do before you. So I always love starting my presentations with a quote, and this quote says, "Your success in an interview is a reflection of your preparation." So if you do not prepare the due diligence that you're meant to do before an interview, magic is not going to happen. Miracles are not. You have to prepare for your interviews the same way you prepare speak in school, that you need to really study. So your success is a reflection of how you prepare. So let's look at different interview styles, right? The first is, depending on the company, depending on the role, depending on the location, it varies. The first is a phone call interview. The person is calling me, since the person is not seeing me, I don't really need to be prepared like that. But that's wrong. For all your phone call interviews, you have to be very prepared. You have to answer certain questions like, tell me about yourself, where are you from, what are you currently doing, and why are you job hunting? Those very simple questions. We're going to get product management. So you get to answer some coding problems depending on the role that you're applying for. So coding problems have like a variety of ranges. You have like data structures, you have algorithms, you have system design. Then for product managers, you have product-based questions where they're giving you like scenarios and how to build a product or how to market a product. You'll be asked questions like, how can you build an Uber app to make sure that it scales? Or how do you assess, or how do you campaign your product to users? Those very simple questions. Okay, not simple, but those kind of technical questions. Then the third is behavioral interviews. And this is where most people in the tech space flop. Because in this interview, you are not coding, you are not building a system, you're answering very simple questions. So in this interview, they want to focus on who you are, the past experiences that you've had, either your past work experience, your experience as a student, and how you navigated certain situations. So in this interview, they're going to ask you things like, have you ever had a conflict with your coworker, and how did you solve that conflict? And if someone asks you that kind of question on a normal day, it will take time for you to actually reassess how to answer that question. So behavioral interviews, I feel like they're more tricky than even technical and phone call interviews, because if your answer is not structured enough, if your answer is not something people can understand, and if you're not putting in the most important information into what you're answering, you'll
Yes,
get back.
sorry about that.
Okay. So you're focusing on your past experiences. So this is like an overview of 3 types of interviews. So let's move on to like checking them out in detail. So like I said, how do you prepare for a phone call interview? Phone call interviews are usually the first step before an in-person or a video interview. So your interviewer will collect your phone number over email. They will schedule a call for you they'll schedule a call for you, and you send in your phone number, and they'll tell you, okay, I'm going to call at so and so time. So for this interview, you need to prepare thoroughly and use the call as an opportunity to demonstrate your qualifications and your enthusiasm for the role. Usually this phone call interview lasts for 10 to 30 minutes. So you want to make sure that between this time frame, you have given like a full summary of who you are and why the person should hire you. So the result of this interview will determine if you are going to be called for a video interview or if you're going to be called for an in-person interview. So this is not an interview you should joke with. Approach this interview with a lot of enthusiasm, sound happy, make sure that your environment is good, and make sure that those very basic questions that they're about to ask you, you have prepared well for them. You can get most of these questions online. So technical interviews, like I mentioned, technical interviews consist of data structures, algorithms, system design, math. Sometimes, yes, they do ask math questions or product-related questions, depending on the role. So technical interviews is a different ball game, honestly. I spent almost 6 to 7 months preparing for just technical interviews. You have to start doing things like hacker rank. You have to start doing things like lead code, things like this is like a different ball game. So I'd always advise people, if you want to start preparing for technical interviews, pick at least one programming language that you want to use in your technical interviews. If you're in the data space, you would most likely be writing with Python already. If you're doing web or software engineering, maybe JavaScript, pick at least one language that you're very comfortable with. Go on Lead Code and start answering data structures and algorithm questions with that language. Because when you start your technical interviews, the first thing your interviewer will ask you is, what programming language are you conversant with? So it's not something that you say, oh, I'm then physics of all of those things. So let's say an interviewer gives me a question about arrays, for instance. Before you start answering the question, tell your interviewer what an array is. I know people will say, oh, this is just you showing off. Your interviewer might already know what an array is, obviously, but you're just giving them an opportunity to see that you don't only understand the technical bit, but you also understand the foundations of what you are learning. So you can start by saying, oh, an array is a data structure that does this and that. With an array, you can do this. Talk about the pros and cons. Then you start answering your question. How to shine in technical interviews is your thought process, explaining your thought process. Let me tell you a story. I interviewed with Bloomberg when I was still trying to apply for jobs, and I didn't really know how technical interviews worked. So when I started my interview with Bloomberg, I was happy. Oh, I'm interviewing with Bloomberg. Bloomberg is based in London, UK, by the way. And they gave me the question and I started typing and I was quiet. So the interviewer kept on asking me, what are you doing? I was like, I'm answering the question. And he said that how did he put it? He said he wants to follow me through the process of answering the question. I didn't actually know that when you're answering questions in technical interviews, you're meant to be speaking out loud. If you're typing equals to, you're meant to say equals to. If you're saying plus, you're meant to be saying plus out loud. And there was me. I was just typing, acting like I was the only person in the room. So he kept on complaining that I wasn't carrying him along. And that was a huge problem for me because I was so confused the way the interview ended. It didn't end well at all. So when I got off the call and I was narrating it to my mentor at that time, she told me, oh, Chisom, you're meant to actually explain your thought process to this person. You're not meant to do it in your head. You're meant to actually say it out loud. Say exactly what you're doing. Say exactly how you want to do it and how you want to go about it. So the thing with technical interviews is you're meant to be very vocal about what you're doing. If you're given a question to add two numbers together, anything you're thinking in your head has to be said out loud. If you're thinking in your head, oh, are these numbers decimals or integers? Everything has to be said out loud. The first thing you start by saying is, okay, are these numbers decimals or are they integers? If I add them, where am I storing the output? Every single thing that's going through your head has to be voiced out so that your interviewer knows that you're carrying the person along. And you might be asking, why is this important? They want to make sure that you can be able to work with other people. Some people are so hell-bent on doing work themselves. They don't want anybody to help them. They're like, oh, leave me. Let me just do this thing by myself. They just want to know if you can collaborate in a team. They want to know if you can explain problems and explain solutions to your colleagues. So that's it for technical interviews. Next is behavioral interviews. And I feel like if you're someone that's not really outspoken, if you're someone that cannot put things together to form like a meaningful conversation, you're going to have very big issues in this interview, because this interview is more like a conversation rather than question and answer kind of thing. So these questions are asked to job candidates to share examples of specific situations they've been in. So I'll give an instance of the kind of questions that I was asked during one of my interviews. And they knew I didn't have work experience because I was applying for a graduate role. And what they asked me is, have you ever worked in a team? Have you ever led a team, and how did the process go? So here I'm meant to give like an overview of how I acted as a leader, the things that I did. And so behavioral interviews have a certain kind of structure. Usually, if you're telling someone how you acted as a leader in a project, you will start blabbing. You will start babbling. You will say the ones that are important mixed with the ones that are not important. And before you know it, 20 minutes, you're still talking and the person isn't even getting anything that you're saying. So behavioral interviews have a certain kind of structure. The first thing is you start with the situation at hand, the task that you were given, what you did, and the result of that task. So for the situation, what I said was, I was given a task project and I was picked to be a leader in my team. And this was in school. So you've given the person an overview of the situation that thing happened in. The next is the task. What did you do? You started assigning roles, right? You started telling this person, okay, this is what you do, this is what you do. You started asking people for feedback, letting people tell you the status of the project and how it's going. That's the task. That's you like deliberating with your team members and all of that. And then the action now is, how did you guys go about solving that project? Did you go on Google? Did you ask for help from your lecturers? Did you check books? Did you do a lot of research? Did you do like surveys and all those stuff? That's what you did. Then the result of the project, how did it end? Was it a successful project? Did you guys fail? Did you guys have squabbles in between and all of that? So if you follow this STAR technique, you will notice that it's more like you're telling a story. You're not picking A and picking Z and picking C at the same time to make everything look so scattered. Everything has a structure. So for every behavioral question that you get, always follow the STAR technique. Why I would say you should put this in your head is, most of the time you get behavioral questions that you have not really practiced before. You can get something like, how did you feel when you were in a meeting and you got people told you to keep quiet, or people told you this happened. But meant to I met these people so that I can resolve conflict. You're going to also be answering a lot of conflict resolution questions, collaboration questions, leadership questions. I mean, there are a lot. So if you go on Google right now and type behavioral questions, you're going to be seeing a lot of categories. So I'm not saying that you should learn how to answer your technique. Then moving forward to sharing general interview tips. The first is study as much as you can for your interviews. Don't wing it. Your interviews are not like pop quizzes. Your interviews, the same way you study for an exam, the same way you write like area of concentration and all those stuff, is the same way you should approach your interviews. Don't approach your interviews with the intention of, oh, I think they might ask me something I know. Don't be too relaxed. That's what I mean by don't wing it. Then 2 is mock interviews are very important. I would suggest mock interviews for technical interviews and for behavioral interviews as well, or feedback on how you're doing. So I did a lot of mock interviews with my friends and it was really nice. And after every mock interview, they give me like an overview of how I did and things that I should improve on. So this is something that you should do weekly, or even days when you find new answering questions, because this is something you've done before. So I'll always recommend mock interviews before your interview day. Do enough company research. This is getting so lengthy. That's why I said interviews are like 360 and it's a whole lot of study. Before you apply to a company or before you interview for a company, do a lot of research about that company. Know what the company's mission is, know what the company's products are, know the people that are working in the company, just few key people, know the accomplishments of the company. Why I'm saying this is because these are the topics that drive conversations during your interviews. If you're talking to me, I remember attending a Google interview and I was talking about products that Google is currently working on, and even the ones that they are yet to launch, but they just figured out the way to announce it, like on YouTube or even on the Google search page. And when I told that to my interviewer, she just felt like, oh, you actually know that. She just knew that, okay, this person is not working here yet, but she's already interested in what the company is doing. She's already very recent with everything happening inside the company. So do enough research about the company and understand the company's mission so you can help drive conversations with your interviewer. Other thing is have adequate knowledge about the role that you're applying for. And I would always tell people that before you apply for any job, be intentional about the kind of job you're applying for. If you're applying for a software engineering position, software engineering comes in different ways. You can be a software engineer based on machine learning. You can be a software engineer based on data engineering. You can be a software engineer based on front-end technologies. So if you're a front-end JavaScript, Node.js, don't go and apply for a software engineering role that is machine learning based, where you're seeing things like building models and all of that. Have adequate knowledge about the role that you're applying for. Know exactly what the company expects of you. And this will give you a more direct way of answering questions during your interview, because you are not, you know exactly what they're looking for. So you know exactly what to give them. So try to do that research as well, and don't just blindly apply for jobs. Other things would be showcase your skill sets and expertise in every answer that you give. People say that is overdue, but as long as you have the time and they ask you a question, try to append things that are appendable. If they ask you how many programming languages you know, mention Python. But if you know a little bit, nobody will kill you. There is nothing wrong in doing that. So whatever they ask you, make sure that you try to showcase different sides of your experience, different angles. Tell them about times that you've led a team. It might not be a software engineering team, but just try to showcase your leadership qualities that you displayed while leading that team. It might even be an event that you planned, but just try to make sure that in that 1 hour, people cannot see their face, number one. I know that we're in Nigeria and there's no fuel, there's no light, but that is not an excuse. You join your interviews, people cannot see your face, your room is very noisy and crowdy, you have a very moody energy and get over it. Try to be vocal in all of your interviews. Speak out. Don't mumble, don't whisper. The same way I'm speaking out now is the same way that you should speak out during your interviews. Make sure that your environment is quiet. Make sure that your environment is conducive. Your interviewer might not tell you, oh, I can't really hear you, or oh, I can't see you, but they're taking notes of all these things. And even if you perform well, the kind of energy that you just brought to the room didn't just sit right. So most of the time, you might be doing yourself a disfavor if you don't get prepared. So even if it means you going to a hub to do your interviews, or if it means you borrowing someone's laptop, if your camera is not really good, please do it. Please just go ahead and just try to be at your best self. Next thing would be prepare for salary conversations. Most of the time, if companies have seen you as a good fit, they might pop in the salary thing with you. And you might not even come to the interview with that impression that they're going to ask you about money, and they will just take you unawares like this. And you end up saying things like, you're not meant to say. You make sure you can check out for salary talk, like levels.fyi, Glassdoor, although that's not for Nigerian companies, but I'm just putting it out there so that you know what someone in your role is meant to earn, and you don't just seem clueless when they ask you that question. It's very important. Other things are be open to feedback. I'll give you a very funny question I'll give you a very, very funny story when I did an interview with a company. And at that time, I have learned technical interviews, I have learned behavioral interviews. I was overconfident. I would say overconfident because it kind of burnt me a bit in that interview. And so I finished answering the question, and they were telling me this thing you did is not efficient. I kept on arguing with these people. I told them that, you see this code, this code that I wrote, this code is perfect. There's nothing that you're saying that will make me change this code. And I saw myself argue with these people, and there were two. Two of them felt that the code I wrote wasn't so efficient. But me, I knew that was the best. That was the best of the best. So I was like, okay, if it's not efficient, what should I do, right? And the interview didn't end well, obviously. So I am always open to feedback now, as you see me. If you're going to an interview, do not argue with your interviewer, please. I'm begging you. Even if you're oversure that what you're doing is correct, don't argue. Be open to feedback. I want to know if you would be open to feedback when you're working in the company. If your manager gives you something to do and your manager sends it back to you to redo it, they just want to know if you're that kind of person that will say, oh, this is already perfect. I don't think I want to change anything. So please be open to feedback. Don't be too laid back. At the same time, don't be overly confident, right? Just be in the middle. If they tell you, okay, this thing is not really good, ask them for feedback, ask them for ways that you can improve, and don't be so fixated on what you did or what you solved or what you answered. So please be open to feedback. Yeah. Yes. The first is do a quick run through of your resume. If you're somebody on this call and you don't do your resume by yourself, you're doing yourself a disfavor. I know a lot of people that give their resumes to other people, which is good because some people cannot really craft good resumes. But even if you give it to someone to craft for you, try to go through it. Most of these people that do resumes for people add things that you don't even know. They append 5 years of experience in 5 different programming languages. You're now wondering where all of that came from because you didn't go through your resume. So even if you didn't write your resume by yourself, the morning or the day before your interview, have like a quick run through on your resume, because there are some things that you might even have added in your resume, but you just forgot, so that you don't look like it's not you, or you're not the one that wrote the resume. Do enough research about the company and the interviewer. I've talked about researching about the company. Other things would be your interviewer as well. The thing with interviewers is that they send in their names, or the recruiters send in the person that will interview you to your email. So before that day, you already know that, okay, is this person that's interviewing me? Go on LinkedIn, check the person out, check the person's work experience, check the person's location, and come with that realization to the call. This helps because most of the time, interviews that go a job here and there, the person knows that, oh, okay, you've done your research, and it helps you drive a lot of conversations. 3 is very important. Practice the tell me about yourself question. People take this question like a normal, what is your name? My own version of tell me about yourself took me 1 week to craft. It wasn't something I just said passively. Oh, tell me about yourself. My name is Chisom. I'm currently a student at no. It took me 1 week to craft. So I got a pen and I got a paper and I wrote down every single thing I wanted to highlight in 1 minute. Tell me about yourself question is not a 5-minute question or a 5-minute answer. This is something that you need to run through 30 seconds to 1 minute if possible. And you're meant to highlight the most important things about yourself. Your name, obviously, the things that you know, your soft skills. You're just meant to merge all of that up into one answer. So if you're here and you cannot answer a solid tell me about yourself before your interview, you're going to have a lot of issues. Because when they ask you this question, you're going to start babbling. You're going to start saying things that might not be so important. And you even notice that you might even leave out the things that are even more important than the other things that you said. So take your time to craft an answer for this question and try to memorize it. Let it be part of you. Because when you're doing your interviews, this is a question that will be very recurrent. So try to memorize it and just make sure that it's always at your fingertips. 4 is make sure that your environment is quiet and free of noise. We've talked about that already. And try to join the call 10 to 15 minutes before you get everything ready. Don't be on Lead Code the morning before your interview. Don't be on YouTube searching something the morning before your interview. Always make sure that you're at the call 10 or 15 minutes before your interviewer joins the call. So now your interview day is here and you're currently on your interview. Start the call with enthusiasm. Be happy. Let the person feel your happiness from the screen and let the energy just flow in that happy manner. Don't be so moody. Don't be so maybe sad or laid back or you're doing like this. No. Get your everything together and just be your best self. Start the interview with a lot of confidence. It helps you. 2 is showcase your soft skills in any way possible. This is a very funny point because some people will say, oh, I'm an introvert. I don't like talking. This is the time to start talking. This is the time to make sure that you are being as open, you're being as confident as you can, you're showing all your soft skills, your communications. Effective communication is a very important soft skill. So if you don't have that at the back of your pocket, you're going to have a very huge problem when you're interviewing. 3 is be open to feedback, like I mentioned, and assistance while answering questions. Always allow someone to assist you. It's good to say, I think I saw a post where they said it's not good to say, I don't know. But I know that there are some very good variants for saying, I don't know. It has a lot of grammar, but there are some very good variants for saying, oh, I don't know. But always ask for assistance if you're not sure of the next step to take. Number 4 is use the STAR method to structure your answers. We've talked about that already. And always voice out your thought process if you're doing a technical interview. So your interview is over. What do you do after your interview? Always ask questions about the company and work life. This is something people miss and they're like, I didn't pass or I didn't pass my interviews. Before you finish your interview, your interviewer is always going to ask you the very last question. Is there any other thing you would like to know? And some people are like, nah, let this call just end. I'm tired. But you don't know that that is just a question. That's not a rhetorical question. That is a question for you to ask another question. So this is the opportunity that you have to ask about the company, ask about work life. Ask the person how the person feels working in that company. Ask the person the team the person is on in that company. Ask anything you want to know about the company, the location, not really the pay, but just ask everything around the company and what you'd like to know and the things that you're interested in. Number two is, after your interviews, in your head, you already know that there are some things that you might not have done well, but there's some mistakes that you might have made. So that's the opportunity you have to take down all the lessons that you've learned for that interview, so that before your interview or before your next interview, you're looking at that jotter and you're saying, oh, this is what I did. I shouldn't repeat it. You're more aware now. 3 is, send your interviewer a thank you note online. I know it sounds cliche, but if it's something that you can do, get the person's email, get the person's LinkedIn, and just send in a thank you note. It's very, very helpful. So you're done with your interview, you're having cold feet, you're shaking, you're like, oh, how do I know if I passed? Or how do I know if they're going to accept me? So these are very few ways to know. It might not be 100% accurate, but these are some things that can help you tell if you're going to get positive feedback. So the first one is positive feedback. The interviewer would express a certain kind of enthusiasm about your qualifications. You see the interviewer praising you about things that you've done and complimenting you about the experiences that you've had. So that shows that the person is really interested in what you know, and the person is looking forward to most likely working with you based on his or her newly found knowledge about you. Second is the next steps. The interviewer might just, in a way, try to point out that, okay, the next stage is maybe in a few weeks' time, or they might tell you things like, you're going to hear back from the recruitment team. That's very, very common. So they might make like those very subtle hints that you could pick out. So this is a very strong indicator of making progress to either the final stage or even getting an offer. Third is a lengthy interview. When you see your interviewer poking you, asking you more questions about the things that you've worked on, things that you're interested in, it shows that as much as you've shown a lot of enthusiasm in your interview, they might actually be interested in you if the interview goes beyond time. Because trust me, if an interview doesn't really go well, it might even end before the time is meant to end. So a lengthy interview is also might be an indicator that you might have done well. Third is clarifications. They want to clarify the things that you know. They want to also ask about your salary expectations as well, your preferences, where you would love to work. And this shows that they might be considering you for the role. So if you see them asking you about your salary expectations, if you're good working remotely or working on site, know that you might be considered for that role. And lastly, I would end with, always remember that interviewing is a skill that is learned over time and it's something that you improve on. My first interview was horrible. The call ended. The second one was the one where I wasn't my Microsoft interview for the role that I have now. If you see me that day, I was glowing. I wasn't shaking. I wasn't as nervous as I used to be during my other interviews. I was very confident. I wasn't reading before, the thing where you don't read before an exam and the morning of your exam, you're now searching through your books. I wasn't doing that. I was so calm. And even when I went to my interviews, I had 4 interviews and all my interviewers said one thing: you have a lot of confidence. That's exactly what they told me. And that just assured me that all the months I've been using to prepare for interviews prepared me for that particular interview. So don't be scared if your interviews don't go well. Know that it's a skill that you learn and it's something that you keep improving on. You keep reiterating and you keep improving on. And also, rejections are a thing. I know that that's not really a topic for today. Rejections are a thing. You might do an interview, you might perform really good, 100%, but they would reject you. I can't start talking about reasons why they reject people, but there are so many reasons maybe you didn't really meet the cutoff mark, or somebody was better than you. I mean, all of that. But always know that interview is something that you can also is aircraft. The first part is personal branding, how to apply for jobs. Part 3 has a bulk of every single thing I spoke about today, and it has like a more granular explanation of all these things. Moving forward talks about how to handle rejections and also how to negotiate your salaries. Part 5 talks about your big tech story. I reached out to all my friends working at big tech companies, Amazon, Twitter, Facebook, Microsoft, Google, and I reached out to them and I told them, please come and contribute to my book. So they wrote about their stories, how they got to those companies and how they're doing. There's a 6-month interview preparation guide. There's an interview journal as well where you can document. There are templates, resume templates, cover letter templates. So this book is I just opened. I'm done. Thank you so much for having me, and I will be taking questions and answers.
That
Thank you.
full. That was, everyone, please just put your love emoji, your clapping emoji on the screen for Chisom. Thank you so much. I could not stop smiling because your experiences, wow, you brought your experiences and they were funny. The life was fun and very interesting.
Very funny.
Oh my, thank you so much, Chisom, for sharing this so effortlessly. All right, options here. Oh, where are they? Did they disappear? Okay, so Wendy said, how do technical interviews work in non-core tech roles?
Okay, nice. I feel like it depends. I haven't really interviewed for a non-core tech role before, but what I would say is they're going to be as granular as possible. They're going to ask you questions as though you're working in that same space with them. So I think I've attended a PM interview before, like a simulation of how a PM interview works. And the questions I was hearing was, if you want to design an application like Uber, what are the first things that you put in place? What do you think? Those product scenarios and all those kind of stuff. So if you know exactly what the product manager does in his or her day-to-day, those are the kind of questions they're going to be answering. Then for things like developer advocacy, technical writing, data analytics, data science, go on LinkedIn and reach out to people that actually for how to design things like SEO, how you can make your writing more appealing to your user, how to document as well, and all of that. So whatever you know is a day in the life of the role that you're currently learning, try to ask questions, and Google has literally everything, every single thing. So if you can go.
All right, thank you so much. Another question is, sorry, phone interviews are usually impromptu. How do we prepare for something we don't know how do we prepare for something we don't know when it will come in?
I don't think phone interviews are impromptu. I feel like before a company calls you, they send you an email stating that they're going to call you at a certain time and a certain time zone as well. That's something people miss out. So I don't think they're ever impromptu. You know that it's coming. The things that will be impromptu are the kind of questions they are going to ask you. So I'll give an example. When I was applying to Microsoft in 2020 for an internship, I didn't get an internship, by the way. Sad. And when they called me, I was preparing to go out. And I was thinking that the interview was just going to be, oh, tell me about yourself, your experiences. But that wasn't it. They gave me a math question to solve. This IQ testing question, if you have 3 balls here, 4 balls here. I did not expect that. So those are the kind of questions that will be impromptu. So just know that phone interviews last 30 minutes tops. They're not going to be asking you very heavy things, but try to check out all these math questions for software engineering roles, math questions, IQ, all those kind of stuff, those very quick questions that you need to give like quick replies to. Then, yeah, those are the things that can be impromptu, but try to do a lot of research and just try to know those questions. But for the phone interviews, they're never impromptu. They always let you know that they're calling.
Okay. We have one question from Providence. She said, Chisom, thank you for your detailed information. How do you handle ghosting from companies? That's a tough one.
Normal. They're gonna ghost you. It is very, very normal. In fact, they don't care about you at the end of the day. They don't. The only situation I see where companies reach out to you to tell you, okay, why they rejected you are situations where it was a very tough decision. They couldn't pick between you and someone else, and they picked this person. So they're reaching out to you because they want to let you know that you didn't perform badly. You actually did great, but there was someone with a better fit. That's the only time I've seen companies reach out to people. And also, if they don't have space, if they've hired people and there's no space again for you, they'll tell you. And they're just doing it so that it doesn't kill your spirit. It doesn't make you think that, okay, after all those beautiful things that you did, they still rejected you, no. But companies that ghost you, I mean, there are so many things. Either the application window was too much and they just picked the people that they needed. But if you reach out once, twice, and they don't reply, I feel like you should just move on. It's a normal thing. Even people like us that get offers, there's some people that get like 6 offers in the space of 2 months. They ghost people too. They don't get back to them. So it's a two-way thing. Companies ghost you, you ghost companies.
You ghost companies, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
so
I see Julieta has a hand raised. Julieta, if you're still there, you could just talk, you could just unmute and speak. If you're still there, Julieta. Okay.
I think we have more questions on the chat.
Ghosted us, if I may say. Okay, so we have Yang here. She said, you suggested doing mock interviews with friends that are working in tech spaces already. What if you don't have such friends that are experienced and can give meaningful feedback? How exactly do you get a stranger to give you that time of the day?
Good question. That's a good question. I know that there was a certain time where I was doing one-on-ones with people, but at the point it got very, very overwhelming for me and I stopped. So what I usually do in these one-on-ones is mock interviews were a part of was a part of like the catalog I gave people, and it was free. So people just reach out to me and just pick the mock interview option, and we just do an interview. I feel like it's really hard, but I know that there are some people that are very vocal about these things. There are some engineers I know on the timeline, on Twitter, on LinkedIn, that are readily available to do mock interviews for you. This is something I have seen. So number one, I feel like you should be on the lookout for them. And number two is you're in a community. I mean, this is Wentors. This is something that they can always whip up. They can help you to connect with people that can do this for you. But if you're looking for something that you can do on the go, I know that there's ADP List. ADP List is like a forum for all those kind of assistants and all of that. So you can also check out ADP List for people that are ready to give like software engineering advice and all that. Then lastly, if the worst comes to the worst and you've not got anybody, just post about it. If you post about it on LinkedIn now and you're sincere about your need for someone to do a mock interview with you, people are going to reach out. That's for people that eat and breed data structures and algorithms. these are the kind of people that should find you. Then if you go on Twitter as well and post it, people would always want to help. People are always helpful. So there are several ways that you can go about it, but in your space, if you're in a community like this, you will definitely have people or friends that can help you. If you look closely, there are some people that have helped you. So yeah, there's so many options you can use, but any
Awesome. Okay, so we have
of that
Joy,
should work.
I'll get to you. So let me take Edikan's question. So please, can you point me to the resources to help me prepare for a technical interview? I only got to lead code from your presentation. Another question is, how do I navigate and handle a question I don't have an idea about and not coming off as clueless? All right.
I just remembered myself closing my laptop when they showed me a question. I don't know. So that's a very good question. Okay, for the resources, okay, let me start with how do you handle answering a question you don't know of? See, the thing is, most of the time, the way people approach questions on Leet Code and HackerRank, people do a lot of cramming. They do a lot of memorization. So you're like, okay, if I open 50 Leet Code questions, I cram all the solutions. Whenever I'm called for an interview, I will just pour it out. But the funny thing is, what if they don't ask you any of those questions? Or what if they ask you one of those questions and they twist it up a bit? So I would fall back to the problem-solving foundations. The fact that you're an engineer, you're a developer, you have that superpower of solving problems. You literally love seeing problems. I literally love solving these problems. So I would say when you're preparing for these interviews, develop a problem-solving mindset first. The thing with the problem-solving mindset is, you know, all these math gurus that was I a math guru? I think I was. I don't know. I'm not sure. But I had friends that are math gurus. They love problems. Bring problems to them, they will dive at it. Do these people know how to solve those problems at the first instance? No, they do not. But because they've already developed that math problem-solving skill, they are very, very interested in breaking out that problem and giving you a solution. So I would say focus on problem solving rather than cramming. People cram a lot for technical interviews. It won't take you anywhere. You will spend 6 months cramming and you spend another 6 months learning the things you refuse to learn from the beginning. So try as much as possible to absorb all the foundations, practice a lot of questions. If you practice 50 Leet Code questions on your own, maybe probably check YouTube for maybe the answers or the problem-solving process. There's no problem that anybody will give you that you won't be able to solve. And I'm not saying they'll give you the problem and you cannot solve it. If you get to a certain point where you've started the solution, the interviewer has already seen that you have a problem-solving mindset and they can just assist you from there. Most of the interviews you have, you don't even need to run the program. Most of the interviews you have. I've attended some interviews that I didn't need to run my code. I just wrote down the algorithm. Halfway into solving the problem, the interviewer told me that he is satisfied with the solution I have brought. And that was the end of the interview. So if you see a question, I know most of the time, I won't even lie, most of these questions can be very scary. They're asking you things on trees, especially trees. Trees questions are very scary. Trees, hash maps, very complicated questions. But don't tell yourself mentally, okay, I don't know this problem or I cannot solve this problem. Just try. Just try. If you know how to initialize an array, start from there. Start by writing the algorithm of what you think is the best solution. It's just like somebody asking you a very simple question like, I want to get to my house to the church. How do I go about it? You don't really have a mental picture in your head, but you can, in a way, direct the person on how the person can go about it. That's exactly how problem solving is. You don't really need to know every single thing from A to Z. But if you start from a certain point and you just keep breaking it down till like the end, it will give you a very good overview of how the problem is full on. So if you don't know a question, don't say, I don't know, just start solving it. There's definitely the first solution. You move to the next step, the second step, the third step. Before you know it, you're understanding the problem and you're breaking it down. Another thing I would like to point out is understand the question before you start solving. Most of the time, you think that is what the question is all about, but the question is something entirely different. Understand the question. Make sure that you're communicating with your interviewer. You're asking the person, okay, is this what the question is all about? It doesn't make you look dumb. You're just trying to seek clarification on what that problem is. And by the time you explain it to your interviewer and how you understand it, both of you, remember, it's not you writing the exam. Both of you are collaborating to solve the problem. So it's okay if you don't have an idea of how to solve it. Both of you are going to collaborate to break it down and get to a certain solution. So that's for problem solving. 2 is for resources. The first resource I would mention for technical interviews is LeetCode. Some people prefer LeetCode, some people would prefer HackerRank, but I prefer LeetCode because LeetCode will give you more questions that are more familiar. LeetCode will give you questions that you can easily see in your interviews, not exactly the same, but they just have like a similarity. Other things would be Educative. Educative has a very, very solid interview prep course. And why I like this is that it comes in different languages. If you write Java, Educative has a course for you. If you write JavaScript, Educative has a course for you. Python, C#, Educative has those courses for those different languages. So Educative is one. Cracking the Coding interview as well. I have the book. I ordered the book on Amazon. But I wouldn't really say that you should dive into cracking the coding interview immediately because it's not so beginner friendly. So start with LeetCode, start with understanding the basics. I would say start with Educative, understand the basics first, practice those questions on LeetCode, probably get cracking the coding interview, answer the questions there as well, and just keep reiterating, keep answering questions, keep practicing, keep hitting it so hard so that before you know it, you've gotten very experienced with different kind of problems so that anything they throw your way, it's something that you can answer. So I really hope that answers your question.
Yes. All right. Okay, so we have 3 hands on board. We're almost running out of time. We have Julieta. I don't know, it's just like here. Hi, Julieta. Please, you can come on now. I see your hand has been up. So after Julieta, Joy will go, and then Inyang, and that'll be our final question for the day. So Julieta, if you're still here and you still want to ask a question.
Hi.
Okay, hi. Thank you so much.
Sorry. Yeah, I have a question based on my experience. It's like it's something as it's kind of curious for myself because on my experience, first interview I passed, and then they want me to do the technical. So I did the technical coding, and then after that, so I got an email. They want me to next to do the interview again for for my technical coding. So and then it's so sad because I did the coding, and then after the I received the not it did not successful. So I don't know it's what is the wrong for it's kind of
Is it just me? I think I stopped hearing her.
I think I stopped hearing her as well. I'm thinking she's having a technical glitch. I could not get her question. Okay, so Julieta, maybe you could put your question in the chat and we'll get back to you because we couldn't get it. Okay, Joy, you can go ahead.
Okay, good evening, everyone.
Hi, Joy.
Good evening, Chisom. Thank you for such a wonderful talk. It was so enlightening. Thank you very much. Okay, my question is regarding an experience I had of recent. A Google recruiter reached out to me on LinkedIn for an opening in Poland, which I started the process. That was like May. Yes, I started the process in May. Then in June, in June, I did my first technical interview where I got to solve graph algorithm questions. And after the interview, that same day, the recruiter reached out to me that the feedback he got from the interviewer was very good, that I've moved to the next stage, that the next week I was going to get an email for me to select a date for the next stage. So the next week, I didn't get the mail. I reached out to him again on LinkedIn, and he said he was so sorry for the delay. He will reach out, like I will get the mail. The next week as well, I didn't get it, and then after then he stopped responding to my message, and that was June. That was June. Till June, that was July 25th, right? All through till now. Like I just got a message from him yesterday. It was he said, hi Joy, sorry for the delay. I've been away on holiday and just returned. Unfortunately, due to the current situation, we currently have no head count, but if anything changes in the near future, I will connect and pick up from where we left it. Okay, I would like to ask you, based on your experience, how do you handle such, like something like this?
Is it, how do you handle it emotionally?
Like it's so, you don't understand. I had to do a lot of prep. I had to do mock
See,
interviews, write
I
courses
get,
online.
I
Yeah,
get
like
you. But on the bright side, you actually gained more on your end, don't you think so? Because the knowledge you had, you didn't sell it to them, you didn't dash it to them. I mean, it's still with you. If you think from that angle, I feel like you feel a lot better. And this is something that's very common with most big tech companies, startups, and all of that. Things can get a bit shaky, right? Like the whole layoffs and hiring freeze and all of that. So probably most of the time your applications get, should I say, mixed
TV
up,
is network.
or can you hear me? Yeah, probably most of the time your applications get, I mean, it's crazy because they have a lot of people applying, they have a lot of recruiters following up with your applications. I think a certain instance where a recruiter was following about 5 people on their application, job application, and the recruiter was laid off. So you now start thinking of how they would pick up from where that person stopped. I mean, so many things will just be mumbled up. But at the end of the day, it's not your fault.
Yeah.
All the things that happen, it is definitely not your fault. But you still gained a lot. It's not easy to prep a Google interview. If you can interview a Google, if you can interview any big tech company, you have the ability to smash any interview. And that knowledge that you've gained, that experience that you've gained, prepping for that interview is something that you're taking out of the whole mess. So don't see it as a discouragement. Keep pushing. Use that same energy on more jobs, prepare for more interviews, and just look for how you're going to smash it. Most of these things are not really, you can't control it. It's not your fault. But at the end of the day, you've learned how to solve graph problems. You've learned how to solve array problems, and you're more confident in your interviews.
This question will go to Ian. Please, yeah.
Okay.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening, beautiful.
Yeah. Okay, so I have 2 questions, so I'll be quick. Okay, so the first question I want to ask is, I'm currently learning front-end development, and I'm still kind of in the beginner stage. So I just know HTML, CSS, and just like a bit of JavaScript. And obviously, I would like to work like in a big tech company, right? But then it seems like you said, data structures and algorithms is like needed. So I don't know. I feel like since it is something that would take a long time to learn, I feel like I should start learning now. But then at the same time, I feel like I'm not there yet in my journey to start like, okay, I barely even know things about
Okay.
JavaScript like that. Yeah, so I don't know when is the right time to start learning that.
I feel like now is the right time. And do you know why I say now? Data structures and algorithms, they have a way of sharpening your programming language skills. It will I don't even know how to explain this. It will over sharpen your skills. So I remember when I started learning Android development, I had the same dilemma as you, where I was thinking, oh, should I learn Java for Android? I know that's what you're thinking of. Should I learn Java for Android, or should I learn Java for data structures and algorithms? But in your own case, you're thinking of, oh, should I learn JavaScript for web? And should I learn JavaScript for data structures and algorithms? As long as they're two different things, the latter is going to help you. I remember when I started using Java for data structures and algorithms, it fine-tuned my Java knowledge. I set my so you can still be learning your front-end development. Pretty good, you're doing what you're doing. You tend to start cramming, you tend to start putting everything in your head.